I came to Reno, even from getting off the plane, and you're going to appreciate this, Vin, I felt just a wee bit of culture shock. My first time in Reno, I expected it to be a lot like Boise, but this ain't Boise.
No.
It's different. Very conservative, but kind of definitely a stronger Old West feel than even the Boise area. It's quite comical.
Yeah, people don't quite appreciate how diverse Northern Nevada is, because the county that I live in, Washoe County, goes from central Nevada all the way to the northern tip of the state. And people don't understand how big Nevada is. They think I'm right next to Las Vegas. And in reality, I'm the same distance away from Las Vegas that San Francisco is to Los Angeles. It's just this massive, massive state. And the northern half of it is nothing like the southern tip. We have everything you could imagine represented here. And so it really is. I mean, if you want to see the old versus new America, we got it. We are the intersection of old America and new America. And amazingly, we all kind of like each other and live well together. And we're all happy with the way this goes. It's one of those places that I think if the rest of America could do what we do in Reno, it'd be a way better country.
I agree. I did really like my time there. I looked at a role there, and before remote became even more popular, than it is now. And it would have been a good place to commute to. Let's put it that way, because I'm still keeping my family in Boise for a little while at least. Okay, I think what do you think, Magdi? Should we go live? I mean, I could ask Guy, but we know we're not going to make mom upset.
Don't make the two Germans upset. Let's say that.
That's right.
Way. So
it's
a mutual decision with guys.
I already clicked the button, so we are live.
Oh, okay.
Now.
Excellent.
Now you can consider me that I'm the one who make problems with mom. That I'm not waiting. Just go ahead. That's all.
Well, really, now that Hugo is here, we can start. And I never judge Hugo for being late, because I know what big busybodies my grandsons are, my Nigerian grandsons. Hugo has to stay on mute because of those sons. They are wild in a good way. All right, everyone. And let's see, I think we're on YouTube Live too, right, Guy?
Yep.
Everyone, thanks for joining us in our living room. As you know, we're super chill. No one is more excited than me today. You may wonder, well, Tom, do you have a mentor? You're looking at him, Vin Vashishta. And I don't even know if I'm saying it very accurately, Vashishta.
That's it.
Oh, nice.
That's better than average. I'll put it that way. Usually it's there's extra syllables inserted, sometimes letters entirely added.
Very funny. But I started to get to know Vin from when I'd show up at Harpreet's office hours, which, by the way, that's a great thing to do on Friday afternoons in the US and Canada time zones if you have the time. But, there's a lot of great answers and discussion, but then you could just tell he had that extra amount of experience. His posts on LinkedIn are always amazing. It's no wonder why he has over 100,000 followers on LinkedIn. And like I said in the post I did for today, Vin is a consultant to consultants. He's a mentor to mentors. He's just full of wisdom. He's probably going to disavow everything I just said because he's also very humble. But I asked him, and this will be good. He's here for you guys. And he's just going to share his history. And then from that, you ask him questions, and then he'll go where we take him. So Vin, please take the floor.
Hey, yes, everything Tom said was absolutely amazing, kind, generous, and better than I deserve. I've been lucky, really, really fortunate to have had some great mentors myself along the way and have a whole lot of people that follow me and teach me. So what you're hearing isn't just me. And I always want to preface what I say with that. This is a long list of other people who have taught me and who have influenced me. Some very, very senior engineers have, and I wrote about one on a Substack post named Jim, and I've had a dozen Jims over the course of my career. And I think that's, if I want to start talking about me and talking about my background, I got a lot of the gray hair wisdom before I had gray hair, because I listened to people who had been in the field for a long time and who talked about things that didn't make any sense to me. Like, why would you do it that way? And there's almost always a reason. If you've had somebody that's in any particular field for over 25 or 30 years successfully, you begin to realize that they understand things at a different level. And so a lot of what I talk about comes from understanding that engineering is a long, not short game. And data science is a young field, and we don't have a whole lot of long game thinking. So when you hear me talk, if I don't make a whole lot of sense, I want you to put yourself in your shoes 3 to 5 years from now, and to look at what you're building right now and what it'll look like in 3 to 5 years. And, when people talk about technical debt, I have seen technical debt. I have lived it. I've been on some long projects. So beginning of my story is born and raised in Hawaii, and absolutely loved growing up there. But I got to tell you, living on an island it's almost, in a way, everyone thinks of it as a paradise. It becomes a bit of a prison when it's as small as Hawaii is. And so, as soon as I could get out, I decided I wanted to come to Reno, because the University of Hawaii was, their engineering school was going through some churn and going through some issues. And I was looking for a more stable program. So I came to the University of Nevada at Reno, a college no one associates with data science or machine learning. But in the 90s, and I just explained how old I am, unfortunately and inadvertently, in the 90s, they actually had a data science program. They had a machine learning program sponsored by Microsoft. And we have a local office from Microsoft here in Reno that's been here forever. And that was our gateway into about $1 million of funding for machine learning. And so I got machine learning classes, computer vision classes in the 90s, and got to learn this. And I thought, I'm going to graduate. I'm going to go work for Microsoft. I'm going to be one of those AI guys. Yeah, it didn't work out that way. The 90s AI boom was short-lived. Let's just put it that way. Everyone figured out we didn't have any of the necessary supporting components to actually do it. And so the majority of that initiative just kind of fizzled. And so I graduated into probably what a lot of you feel like you graduate into, that you thought you were 100% prepared and you had all the skills that you needed to get a job, and then nobody wants to hire you to do the thing that you thought you were going to school to do.
Now, real quick, Vin,
Yeah.
Are you basically telling us you had to live through one of the past AI winters?
Oh yeah, it wasn't just a winter, it was like a nuclear winter. It was like a comet had hit the planet. And nobody even wanted to say the words data science, machine learning. Those terms didn't really exist, but nobody even wanted to talk about it. It was one of those things that was so overhyped for a very short amount of time, and then delivered nothing because we didn't have the resources. We didn't have enough people on it. We didn't have enough compute power. Just nothing was really feasible. There's a whole lot of pie in the sky back then. And I fell for it. I was young. It was a good time. But while I was in school, I had to take on some sales jobs. And so that was part of my story, is I've had to sell things. I've had to deal with the public and angry customers. And my first job in the technology field, because I couldn't get my AI job that I wanted, my first job was installing software, frontline, talking to customers again, and dealing with customers who were trying to make their business work around software that didn't really work like their business did. And so a lot of the themes you hear me talk about now and try to incorporate into data science now come from, I've been in front of angry customers before, and I wasn't always the back end person. And so I felt the pain of software touching people, and touching people badly in the case of some software and some functionality where, our business works this way, and it's awesome that you think this is the way business works, but it isn't the way business works at all. And I saw the disconnect firsthand between your technology group, your product group, and your customers and the people that actually pay you, and disconnect between why they pay you. And so a lot of that early career is really carried into where I am now. And then over the next 15 years, I did every role in the software development lifecycle. I led teams, I built teams, I ran cross-functional teams, I did DevOps before I even knew what DevOps was. And when I say I did it, I mean struggled through it like everybody did before we came up with the frameworks and everything else that make it better and easier and less expensive and more successful. So I've seen SaaS, I've seen cloud, I've seen a whole lot of these technology cycles. And I saw data science coming. I saw the opportunity to apply data to real world problems. And I got exposed to advanced analytics. I got onto an early cloud project, which was true cloud in a highly regulated industry. I worked in casino gaming. So I got to see what heavily regulated looks like. And I think in some ways that may be our future. And so again, looking backwards, I'm bringing a lot of where I've been to where I am now and getting ready for.
Oh, sorry, real quick.
Yeah.
Were you applying your analytical skills to the casino environment? Oh, cool.
We built a system that did something, number one, that most people in the casino industry weren't so happy with, but that was something everyone in the casino industry really wanted, which they can track customers on property, but they can't track customers once they leave. And so there's no, they have a player's tracking system, but it's only one casino. And what every casino is really interested in is what their players are doing everywhere else. Kind of like you're interested in what your customers are doing with all those other companies. And that's where I saw the parallel. Is I saw this opportunity to track customers, not just players, but in a broader sense, track customer behaviors, and then apply what you can learn across the board about customers, apply that to making businesses more successful with keeping those customers, with optimizing spend. And, this is all, you're listening to these problems now, and this is all stuff we were doing over a decade ago. These are all the same problems. Business problems haven't changed very much. There are new and interesting business models that are being created, and those create some new, casino churn. Yep, there it is. For a while, the biggest problem was that when you put a slot machine on the floor, that slot machine is going to get $20 from one person. And every time we asked a casino to put in a new slot machine, because that's how we made money, they were just saying, okay, so now I'm going to put this new slot machine in and it's going to just get the same $20. Like, why am I upgrading and paying you more for the slot machine if all you're doing is making the same $20 for me? And so we had to start getting smarter about explaining why an upgrade cycle was validated. And this was sort of our way in to understanding just customers across the board and trying to explain to casinos that, look, if you don't have the newest and most interesting, somebody's going to go someplace else. That $20 just disappears. It doesn't get moved around your floor to another machine. It gets someplace else. And that's what I thought I was going to be able to do with data, is help companies understand this. And so I went out and I started pitching. And this is when I started my business in 2012. I started pitching people in the marketing side and in the customer facing side, sales side. Hey, we can use your data and we can make your marketing more effective. We can help sales. We can do all of this. And they weren't ready. That market was not ready. But luckily for me, supply chain and logistics and manufacturing in general, they've been using data forever. And somebody heard my pitch to marketing and said, why don't we do this with logistics? Why don't we do this with supplier discovery? Why don't we do that? And they had a ton of use cases. And so my first customers were not the people I expected, which, if you start a business, rule number one is be ready to pivot. No matter how well you understand your market and your customer base and all of those things, be ready to pivot. Have, an option 2, option 3, option 4. I was lucky option 2 found me, because I would have kept banging my head against marketing for another 3 years before I finally got a customer. And really, it was the supply chain side that helped me do a proof of concept for marketing and show what we could do with customers. And that led to pricing gigs. And that led to, everything and anything you can think of, I've done over the last 10 years. I basically will say yes to any project. And that's how I started my business. And that's how most businesses start. Yeah, I used the Ross Perot model, where they said, hey, can you do this? And I said, I can figure it out. Yes, we'll figure this out. And that, especially with emerging technology, that's how you have to do business, is you have to say, we will figure this out together. It's honest, while at the same time, it allows the business to grow. And that's, as I tried to do more complex projects, as I tried to get buy-in, I ran into the problems that a lot of you are facing right now, which are, trying to get all of the pieces in place that are necessary in order to do advanced data science projects, the ones that actually provide a lot of return on investment and that live up to the hype. So I really quickly realized that I was all of a sudden on the business side. I was on the strategy side again, which was great because I had a background in competitive intelligence. And I had tried to make the transition in 2011, 2010 into the strategy world, into a product management role. And so I had that background. I had enough of a vocabulary to talk to the C-suite. I was one of the only technology people who could walk into a C-suite room and not embarrass myself. And so I got put into a lot of those rooms. That's how I ended up getting buy-in for more advanced projects. And that's how I got pulled back into the strategy side. That's a lot of where I am now. I do a bit of applied research in machine learning. I still do projects. I'm still active. My code still works, not perfectly, but it's pretty good. I've forgotten more programming languages that I'm proficient in now, but I think that's all of us after a certain point. I still remember Visual Basic. I am old, but that wouldn't be a language I would say that you would ever want me to code in. I could do Fortran too, which is scary. I could work
darn,
on ATMs.
I was gonna try to make you feel better and say, hey, I started it with Fortran on punch cards, but you got me.
I can't.
Visual Basic's pretty cool too. Horrors.
I can't.
What about COBOL? Anybody COBOL here?
Oh, Vin said COBOL.
Yep, I can work on
Great.
old ATMs. Yeah, I had a project that was COBOL way back in the day. In gaming, that was one of the great things about gaming is, you want to talk about legacy? I ran into VAX computers in the early 2000s. VAX was still out there in the early 2000s. There was just, yeah. You want to talk about legacy? I've run into legacy. I ran
VAX holds a dear place in my heart, by the way.
Yeah, I ran coax cable. Like that's how backwards gaming was in the early 2000s. I'd run coax cable to connect networks up. These things were ancient. So I've seen some technology that's older than I am because I was in an industry where regulation was so crazy that you couldn't upgrade until 4 regulatory bodies finally said, okay, we'll allow you to get into 1990s technology around 2010. So I've seen a lot. I'm almost like that farmer's commercial. We know a thing or two because we've seen a thing or two. Yeah. I've seen some things that I'm seeing C BASIC when I was 12. First program I ever wrote was playing with BASIC. My gateway drug into coding was a math teacher who said, if you don't like the math homework, you can write some code. You can write a program that does this and I'll let you not do homework. And I took that to heart. I ended up spending an entire month not doing homework, but doing software. And he he finally got so tired of me actually pulling this thing off that he didn't expect anybody to be able to do it. He said, no, okay, no, not anymore. You got to go back, do math.
I felt bad, Vin. One time I was in grad school taking a neural network course, and I was the brave guy. We were being assigned coding assignments to death, and we were delivering. But I just said one day, and I could tell it made him mad, but he knew I was right. I said, we're being overwhelmed with coding right now, and I signed up for this course to learn about neural networks, not just code them from scratch the whole semester. You could see the fire in his eyes, but I was representing the whole class when I said this. And I half regret that I said that. I wish I'd have said, can you help us explore the spectrum of neural networks more with our coding assignments? Because these are killing us. But we grew a lot in that class too.
I had a calculus class that was similar to it. I had a calculus class that was being taught by somebody who is way, way too smart to be teaching a calculus class, which is kind of one of those scary statements to make about a mathematician. He was so far into his postdoc research that he taught us topology as a gateway to teaching us calculus. And to this day, it has made me realize that some people just shouldn't teach, because you can't teach freshman calculus and expect people to understand topology before they've really learned to grasp the calculus. It just, you can't backdoor your way into it from something that you don't learn for another 2 years. So it was, similar. Yes. And he taught the calculus class in 6 weeks. It was a semester-long calculus class, but he went through the entire book in 6 weeks and said, I'll see you for the final. No one passed. No one, none of us.
That is heavy duty. Now, I don't keep going, but when it's comfortable to you, I know a lot of people showed up to hear about what you do now, including your friend Tom. So, I mean, we've talked around it, but never heard it very specifically. And but I don't want to interrupt your flow. Just make sure you get to that, because I know a lot of people are eager to hear that part.
I do a lot. That's why I don't really talk about what I do, because it's confusing to me. It's hard to keep it straight because I cross over so many different areas of the business now that explaining what I do succinctly is very, very hard. But when I'm asked by a customer, why, or a potential new client, they say, well, what do you do? I say, okay, here's the main problem that I solve. It's that you've started your data science journey and you've gotten to a point where you're putting prototypes into production and you're starting to get early returns, which is awesome. However, your problems now are completely different than your problems that you're able to solve. The capabilities you need in your data science team are different than the ones you have in your data science team right now. What it takes to, and I do this comparison because CEOs really understand it, what it takes to get from 10 million to 100 million in revenue is different than what it takes to get to that 10 million. What it takes to get from 100 million to 600 million is different than what it takes to get from 10 to 100. And what it takes to get past that billion plateau, to break through finally, is, as you know, completely different. It's night and day. You transform an organization. It's very similar with data science. You have problems you don't know you have. And so what I do is I build out an AI strategy. It's a comprehensive strategy for the business, because the business needs one vision, one direction. If it doesn't have that, everything else falls apart. And if there's no compelling reason why company adopts advanced, not basic, but advanced data science and machine learning, you won't spend the money. You won't support the initiatives. You won't do all that work. So there's no way to proof of concept your way to an AI strategy. You have to build the strategy first. And so I'm going to help you do that. Then I'm going to help you build out the implementation side of this, which is all the pieces that it takes to go from I've got a vision and an idea and some wonderful goals to, and here's how we're going to get people to do it. And so that's the strategy component. And then I take a project from soup to nuts and I teach the company how to build machine learning that they can monetize. And at first, that's efficiency projects. Those are projects that are going to increase margin. That moves on to competitive advantages where your operating model being built upon, partially built upon advanced intelligent capabilities becomes a competitive advantage for you, to these sort of incremental features where now machine learning and models are supporting your core product lines. And then final stage of monetization is you are actually making money from inference. Someone is paying you for inference. And if you look at Microsoft, they've got the blueprint with the GPT-3, and they have monetized GPT-3 in the 3 hardest ways possible. People are paying for inference directly. People are paying for products like Copilot that are built on inference, or they're going to be paying for Copilot very soon. And finally, people are paying for access to the model, to be able to use the model, to retrain the model, and to bring it into their applications. It's the 3 most important ways to monetize machine learning, and they've actually pulled it off. So they're one of the blueprints. And so that's what I work with the company to do. And then, like I said, I take a project and actually do it with the company and teach those teams, how do you do machine learning and have it result in cash and not blow up in production? And then we begin to teach other organizations how you do this. What else do you have to put in place? How do you articulate your needs? Just all of these little pieces that go into it. So what I do is kind of crazy and complicated and all over the place. And I don't recommend it to anybody, but I'll be honest, it's a lot of fun.
Now I think I'm hearing some things between the statements. I want to see if I'm hearing accurately. I'm guessing you run into a lot of sticker shock. They're not necessarily willing to invest at the level they need to really get the results they were looking for. Is that accurate?
No, and that's the crazy part. Companies are willing to throw cash at data science and machine learning as soon as they see those early prototypes succeed, because they begin to realize this isn't garbage, but they run into roadblocks and they don't understand why those happen, because machine learning is different. They look at machine learning like any other software development and any other technology, and it's different. It creates different operating models. It creates new business models. And the company doesn't understand in most cases that they need to change at the strategy level. And so it's not so much that they're not willing to throw cash at it, it's that they aren't willing to put the work in. And that's really the inertia. Is if it was just a cash problem, everyone would be throwing cash at machine learning and succeeding. But everything from hiring talent to monetization to execution, meaning you get people that actually use the stuff that you're creating, those take work. Those take organizational and business changes. So getting everyone bought into doing the work and supporting the long-term and short-term initiatives is the barrier. That's the complexity. It's really getting everyone on board. And I use greed and cash, which are very effective motivators, especially at the C-suite level. As soon as they realize that there are real gains, this is not, just the small prototypes. There's something else on the other side that's worth the pain. And I also use fear. There are competitors out there that they'll destroy their business and they won't even see them coming if they don't have these capabilities in place and they can't react fast enough. There's just no way that companies are going to survive without this. So sticks and carrots work extremely well to get people to do the hard work. But like I said, I mean, if I was just asking them to write a ridiculously sized check, everyone would do it. Unfortunately, they've all been down that road where they wrote the check and then it didn't work. And now they're asking the question, okay, so it's not a cash problem. What's the problem?
Interesting. Thank you. Gosh, and I'm getting overwhelmed with the quality of the questions in the chat now. So let's get the hardest. Well, forgive me, Kim. I always find your questions so valuable. I don't mean they're more valuable than others, but we're going to need to give Kim a chance to ask at least 2 follow-up questions. So Kim, come off mute, ask your questions that you've been putting in chat, and let's be blessed. By the way, Kim doesn't, I suspect Kim is quite the business guru. You run your own business, don't you?
Yeah.
You have your own, yeah?
Yeah.
We need to hear more about that sometime. But, and then just so you know, we don't have a leadership team for this. The leader is more together, but we do have a steward team that's looking out for the needs of this family. And Kim's a key figure looking out for the needs of this beautiful family we built. But Kim, enough praising Kim. Let's
Thank
hear
you, Tim.
Kim's
Thank you.
questions.
Okay, so Vin, first of all, thank you so much for joining us. It is so awesome to have you here with us and to hear of your experience and your wisdom. It's always really, really nice, especially when people are nice people who are sharing their experience and their wisdom. And that's always a beautiful thing. So the questions that I have are really around the consulting aspects and around what I find to be the most difficult challenges with the sort of change of business towards digitization. And that is, it's one thing to talk to C-levels and try and get them to understand the value of data and how it can be used better, but how do you structure things? Is there any particular framework that you're using? Is there any particular way that you are basically convincing these businesses that it's not just about return on investment, but about the whole change management aspect, the whole aspect of changing the way they think about business and the way that they do business? I'd love to hear your thoughts on that. Thanks very much.
Oh, no problem. And yeah, I can tell you have a lot of strategy experience. Just examples. Everyone asks me for frameworks. No one actually puts in, hey, are you using one of these? No. If you use a traditional strategy framework, you are falling into a trap that most strategy consultants are stuck in. And the reason why strategy consultants are scared out of their minds of data scientists is because we can do the thing they've always promised they can do and never done. We can actually execute. We can create a body of evidence to support the strategies that we build. We can do that. Strategy consulting along any one of those basic frameworks stops too soon because their premise is, here, I'm going to do some surveys. I'm going to do some case studies. I'm going to guess with a recommendation. And then you as a business are going to test this in production. You are going to roll this strategy out, hoping it works with absolutely no evidence that it will work aside from a few anecdotes. And you're going to test this in production and we're going to improve it in real time. And as soon as you present that to senior leadership, they begin to realize that the way that they're planning strategy and the way that they are evolving their business model is based on an imperfect framework, a partial case. And so when you start saying, you need to start demanding a body of evidence to support anything I say. If I tell you this is your business model, I better bring a book. It's not a book of case studies. It's not a book of opinions. It's not a book of I've done this for 25 years, so listen to me. It's data. I'm going to bring you data. I'm going to create models. We are going to prove this out together. And every time you come up with a counterfactual, I am going to go back to work. And we're going to create a strategy that's based on data and models. And this is an evidentiary case for your new strategy, for your business model. There's no framework for that.
Okay, but even if there is, though, because if you're evidence-based research is a framework. I mean, that's so there are frameworks.
But not a strategy framework. The two have never been melded. They say they do, but then you actually look at the product that they produce, because you hear this from Big Five Consulting, where we're going to do research, but it's not real research. They call it research, but it's not. It
Well, I
isn't
think,
the type
yeah,
of research
I mean, I
that
think,
we do.
yeah, the big fives, the thing with them is that they have to go, they're using as their base and their resource pool all of the companies that they've applied their tools to. And so it's a biased system to begin with, because it's tools that are already pre-constructed and that are then being forced onto organizations that aren't necessarily the right coat to wear, So, I mean, on that level, but there is something where it's like, I find personally that businesses who are looking at their data are just like everyone else looking at a bunch of data, completely overwhelmed, don't know where to begin, don't know what to look at first or why. So you go back to their core competencies.
I lost you.
And so
I lost you for about 10 seconds. Can you rewind about 10, 15 seconds? Sorry.
Yeah. No worries. Okay. Sorry. I don't know if that, businesses will look at the data, they'll get overwhelmed and they won't know where to begin. And so you go back to what their core competencies are, what they're trying to achieve, where they want to go. And if you're not going back to that and you're just looking at the data, what are you using as your filter and your scope to look at and say, this is what the data is telling us. This is where you need to go based on the data when data changes. Okay, so advise, please enlighten me.
No. You've done the reason why I'm shaking my head is because I've tried that. I'm not some guru who like came up with this thing on my own. I ran my head into the wall enough times that I've done what you did and it didn't work, and I had to figure out, what am I doing wrong? And so this is why I say there's no framework for this, because as data scientists, we want to tell people what to do and we can't do that. That's the key change in data science that we need to make when it comes to the strategy side. We don't own strategy. Data science teams do not own strategy. We don't. That's someone else. So they have to own it. They have to be the ones making the decisions. They have to be the ones making the recommendations. We don't do that. And that's the mistake, is we overstep because we understand the business better than they do. And so we know what they should do, but we don't own it. So that's the key difference, is decision support. When you implement decision support systems, what you do is you begin to give people enough information to make these decisions. And now they make them on their own. And if you create a good feedback loop, they begin to understand the implications of their decisions. And they begin to realize there are better, and this is the important piece about strategy planning. This is the part that strategy planners understand really, really well. So the reason why you have strategy is because you operate in a zero-sum game. And so you have to make hard choices. The choices you make explain why the business does what it does. The choices you make are the thesis supporting the business model, the operating model, the technology model, and all of the implementation steps that connect value stream to workflow. You create a decision support system for the business, and the business begins to be able to own the decisions and own the consequences. So they begin to own the improvement, and they make the decisions. It's a slower process, but it works because they still own the parts of the business they're supposed to own. And when data science teams start almost invading, when we start sort of invading the strategy castle, people get defensive. They want to own their data. They want to own their decisions, because I don't get fired if the business model's bad. The CEO does. I don't get fired if the implementation on marketing side, the implementation of strategy is flawed. CMO does. They are all painfully aware of that.
So
they
in other
can
words,
fire me, but at the end of the day, they're gone too.
So in other words, it's build the best tool.
It is build an increasingly useful tool. There's a problem when we say best, because our opinion of best is different than theirs. we can't tell them what best is. They have to tell us what it is. And when they begin to see us as partners, they start asking us for input and feedback. And they begin to invite us into these conversations. They'll put a person eventually at the C-suite level who is a data scientist and a leader at the C level. They put a data scientist onto the strategy team who is a data scientist strategist who is responsible for these decision support systems and these continuous feedback loops and improving the quality of data in a way that improves decision outcomes. You begin to get this sort of penetration into their castle, but you can't invade. You have to be invited in. We're almost like vampires that way.
I want to interject a question related to this discussion, Ben. This is something I'm still trying to make sure I've mastered. And it's related to what you and Kim are talking about, but it's derived from Dave and Andy, the authors of The Pragmatic Programmer. And I put it into Tom's language this way. Release crap, meaning show your early models and make it clear, hey, I'm showing you crap. I just want to make sure I'm on the right track. In other words, be very customer centric in that tool that are the tools you're building for them, so that you're not building something that you're in love with. You're building something that they're in love with.
That's critical, but we can't release trash because we lose trust. Right now, software developers have a leisure that we do not have. They have a privilege we don't have. They're trusted. We're not. We are the emerging technology. We are the challengers. We need to have a challenger mentality. We need to look at software as the incumbent, but we're not there yet. And much like Microsoft realized that they were challengers and that they had lost customer trust and they had to win it back. They had to start producing what customers actually cared about. And that meant abandoning my beloved C#. That meant abandoning this walled garden that they had created for themselves around their operating systems and their technologies. And we have to do much the same thing, where we have to abandon some of the things we love to listen to our customers, but we don't have the leisure of being wrong the way that software development does, because software development has a trusted place. And so when they have bugs, they get to fix them. You don't fire the team unless it's something catastrophic. You get to fix them. You roll out a patch. We can't do that.
So if I modified my question or statement to say more like, don't feel like you have to show them a finished product. Just make sure you're on track with them.
Well, find out what they care about and deliver that and make sure it works. That's the other piece. And that's why I hit evidentiary support so hard, is because if it doesn't work, we lose their trust. And so we have to build a deeper level of evidentiary support for every single model that we put out in front of them. Because if we don't have a recourse. We can't have an honest conversation. And one of my strategy classes, I got asked, is data science theater? Yes, it is. We are so much theater, but we are theater that comes with something that none of the other theater before us has come with. And that's a body of evidence to support the theater. We have to say, look, models do not work, they function. And then we back up that functionality with a body of evidence that supports a functional range and then explains, our products are a lot like Alexa. And I talk to C-suite when I say, it doesn't work, it functions. I get a lot of confused looks and I say, it's like Alexa, it's sort of like any other voice app. It works really well in this range of functionality. And there is a degradation of functionality as you begin to get outside of that range. However, it's still useful. You still ask Alexa a whole lot of questions. And when she asks her something that's kind of stupid, you just go, okay, that didn't work. And you're okay with it because that functionality is outside of your expectation. And so the only thing that can happen is that you're delighted that it worked the way that you almost didn't expect it to, and it pulled it off, and you go, oh, that's kind of cool. And so that's the theater piece, is you start saying, in this range, I can give you good guarantees. Outside of this range, I can't. And so we have to put up some safety nets, and we have to be honest about that functionality and that theater. And so when you promise functionality, deliver and explain the things that this model might do in such a way that they understand there is only a certain level of reliability. There's only a certain level of trust that they can put on it. And so unlike software, you don't bet the farm on those areas of functionality, but you offer it as one of those things that might delight a customer or might surprise an internal user, where you say, yeah, stretch it, see if it works. Why not? It's not like software that way, where if you stretch it too much, it is going to fail. With machine learning, it might actually succeed. And in its failure, it's going to learn and get better. And so failure is not bad, but that's not the way we think when it comes to technology and when it comes to software. Machine learning is different. So we have to present it differently.
Excellent. And we have a new darling in our family, Latifat. I'm probably butchering your name. Sorry, Latifat, but she is being so encouraged by what you're sharing. And this really helped then, because when I said release crap, it's like that tracer bullet mentality, where you start with an end to end.
Yep.
But when you first show it, you're just showing, okay, I've got this end to end going. Now I'm going to thicken it, but I just worked out. And it's a spirit of, I like to reference Steve Blank here. He's a startup guru out of Stanford. Now he just consults people, trained a lot of successful startup students. But when you boil it down to that one essential thing he's teaching, it's customer-centric development. And I think that's what you and Kim were really batting around. Kim, did you have any follow-up statements or questions? You put a follow-up statement in there.
I could keep Vin on for hours if he'd let me.
Let's get at least one more. Let's do at least one more follow-up question.
One more follow-up question?
Yep, let's do at least one more. At least.
We expected at least one.
Okay. So you've got this this process that you're using to try and get businesses more aware of what's possible and what's not possible in terms of their future development. How do you go about structuring businesses' teams so that they get the best use out of the tools that are available? Because most businesses will say, well, what do I need? Because they don't know. And so they look to you to say, what do I need? And when you're deciding what somebody needs, are you looking most at building the actual architecture, or are you looking at building clean data? Where are you starting with?
Start with the business model. And when you come at this, we want to be tacticians. And that's the danger, is data scientists are tacticians. And we can't be when we talk to the people who can write the checks for the initiatives that we need and who are going to give us the buy-in that will actually get all of the stuff that has to happen in order for this to be successful. We can't speak to them tactically. And so when we say, when they say, what do we need? They don't mean technology. And that's the first thing our heads jump to, is infrastructure, frameworks, staffing. They're not asking any of that. None of that. Like, that is the biggest thing. I see consultants run in with a tactical plan. It's like, oh, you're going to get shot, because I have. I've seen this movie, I Die First. And, I'm wearing I don't know if we got Star Trek fans, but I'm wearing the red shirt today. And that is the truth of the matter. You run in there with a tactical plan, it's over. I'm beaming down to the surface and I am going to get killed by the alien. That's really where that goes, is because they are so different when it comes to thinking. And the one thing they have been trained never to do is get dragged into the tactics, never get dragged into the workflow. They don't manage workflows. They manage value streams. They are strategists, not tacticians. CTOs cannot get a seat at the table because they are tacticians first. And if you talk to your CTOs, your chief data scientists, chief data officers, chief information security officers, all of these new technical C-suite roles, if you talk to any of them and ask them, what do you, and you got to get a couple of drinks in them. If you get a couple of drinks in people or some truth serum and you ask them, what do you really wish you knew how to do? They say, I wish I was a better strategist. I wish I understood the strategy side. So we have to come in there and start from the business model and the operating model. We have to talk to them about value creation and how data science and machine learning is going to create value. Where in the value stream do we fit? Where does this initiative contribute? How much is it going to contribute? And we can't do that with a $1 value range or $1 value. We have to give them a range. Here is what underperform for this project is. Here's what outperform for this project is. And here's what expected performance will be. You got to make sure underperform is still a value that they really care about. Like if this bombs, it doesn't matter because that underperform number is still amazing. And that's the great thing about machine learning is we can do that. We have these wonderful tools that are so much better than what they're using right now. We can actually pull it off. That's the crazy thing about machine learning is all of these things the C-suite is so trained to go, that's trash. That's not possible. I'm being snowed. We can actually pull it off. And after you do it once or twice, and you show significant cost savings, because those are always the first projects, as we save companies cash, we improve margins. The first few times you pull it off, they just go, wait, it actually did that? We're saving how much? Well, I'm telling the investors about this. And then they start talking to investors and your life gets hard because as soon as they tell someone that can fire them what it is that you're going to deliver, you best be on. And that's when, you know, and again, that and all the hard work has to be done at that point because they're not going to tell you, hey, I'm going to tell the investors this. They're just going to do it on a call. And then they're going to tell you. And you have to then tell them, okay, we have just gone to a new level of support and confidence for that feature. Here's what we're going to have to do. And they're going to realize, oh, I should have talked to you first. And they're every other time after that moment, they're going to talk to you first because now they understand we're going to have to spend some more money. We're going to have to accelerate this. We're going to have to do this in a rigorous way. And remember where I said, what got you to 20 million or 100 million or 500 million is different than what got you to that last milestone. This is where I have that conversation where I say, look, what got us to the point where we could put it in production is different than what's going to get us to the point where we can promise investors and not get killed. And so that's the gateway in.
Now, Vin, you unknowingly dated yourself, and you and I have to give these young whippersnappers some context for what you said early on. When he talked about being the red shirt on an away team mission from Star Trek, well, please understand that one of the top courses taught at Star Trek Academy is which away team members are going to die on the away team mission. And that if you didn't laugh at that, it's because you're not very familiar with the original, like 60s level Star Trek episodes, which were hilarious. If you watch them now, they're also too painful to watch because they're from a 60s mentality. But what Vin's saying is we actually create our own firing squads with what we do. And we make it, as we show more and more promising results, we put ourselves in front of the firing squad more and more until inevitably they find the limits of data science and AI. Is that accurate, Vin?
So you have to have gotten shot a bunch of times to know you're about to get shot with data science. That's the danger is if you haven't walked into that room and gotten torn up, and this isn't just at the C-suite level or at the leadership level, this is also at the research level. I've walked into a capital S, hard science reviews, and whoa, I've never been called an idiot by people who didn't just, I mean, we're used to in the software development world having the word idiot thrown around pretty frequently and fairly freely. But in a hard sciences review, you get called an idiot and then someone spends 20 minutes proving it. Like there is no pain equivalent to that happening. Like the first part, we get pretty toughened too. It's that second part. And if you don't know where all of the flaws in your logic are, the flaws in your process could come from, it isn't so much that you're not going to get shot anymore, because I still do. But I am first asking for feedback now. I'm first explaining that this is partial, not running in thinking I'm done. And so it's a completely different process. And this is what the C-suite expects. This is what senior researchers expect. This is what every layer of review and oversight when it comes to a regulatory perspective expect, is you to present something in phases and ask them, is this worth continuing? Is this a supported approach? Please look at my experimental methodology. Does this pass the sniff test? Because I'm having a hard time seeing all of the counterfactuals that are going to go into evaluating whether or not this is just, garbage that my brain came up with, or is this as good as I think it is? Am I really onto something? And you do that with the C-suite too. You walk into that room and say, so here's what I heard you say your problems were. I've got a solution here, and I need more research time to make sure that I can actually do this and deliver it in the reliability framework that you're expecting. But is this something you care about? And I'm going to present it in a framework that they get, and ask them, instead of going in and saying, this is awesome, and then getting shot. And so that's what I mean by the red shirt, is if you don't know that as soon as you beam down, you could have an alien just shooting at you, you don't quite walk into it with the appropriate respect for how dangerous what you're in is, and how to approach things so that you don't end up getting shot.
And related to this, Vin, Amir is asking, and I can appreciate this, just clarify one more time the difference between strategists and tacticians, and why we tend to be more tacticians.
So we are concerned with the workflow, steps, things to do. Strategists are concerned with the value stream. How do you build value? Why do you build value? More important is the question why when you're in the strategy world. How is the more important question when you're in the tactical world. And so you are creating a thesis and a body of evidence to support that thesis in the strategy world. You are executing steps that achieve the goals of the business in the tactical world. And so when we talk about cloud is not a strategy. When we talk about hiring data scientists is not a strategy. And so anything you do with these is not a strategy. Strategies are an explanation of why. Why do we pursue the opportunities we pursue? Why will we succeed in the face of competition? Why do we create value this way? That's strategy.
Okay, good. Priya, thank you for waiting. You had a question.
Yes, when I had an opportunity to see your YouTube videos earlier, and I commented too. Thank you so much. I'm very delighted to meet you through Tom's session. I did my master's in data science, and I do have analyst background. I'm looking for new job opportunities. I have attended different interviews to the startups, to the big level companies. Startups they're very concerned about if they want me to do R programming, I should be very good at R. They are not happy when I solve the problem with Python coding. And with the big level companies, I have the flexibility to do either Python or R, but the way of testing is completely different. Sometimes I receive a test from HackerRank writing SQL, Python, and machine learning data set. And not every two companies have the same strategy of testing a data scientist. So how do you want me to receive a full-time job? What do you want me to focus first? Is that a middle level company or a large level company? If that is a middle level or large level, what strategy do you give for students like me so that we can have a loop? Like when I researched a lot, these things are pretty common. One behavioral round, one technical round, and one case study round, and one coding round. That can be a hacker rank test, or it can be a live coding. Like they may ask you to share the screen and solve the code. So what do you, and what level of Python programming do you want me to practice? I'm not targeting fan companies right away, but any company like CVS or Capital One or Milliman, what do you want me to do for improving my Python coding skills?
What country are you targeting? Are US companies?
I'm in US, Virginia,
Okay.
and I'm targeting anything around Virginia or any remote positions as a data scientist.
Okay, good. Yeah, I always ask that question because I don't know too much about the hiring in other countries. So, and I've made the mistake of giving US advice to people that are in Europe or Asia or Middle East, and it's different. So here's the largest problem I see with hiring data scientists is the majority of teams hiring data scientists have never been trained on hiring. They don't have a strong framework for assessing capabilities. They have a framework to assess skills. And you can have all of the skills necessary to do data science and still not be a capable data scientist. And so the reason why so many of us at the senior level call out the fact that we probably wouldn't pass a data science interview is because they are completely detached from what you do for a living. They just, and so that's what you have to first sort of wrap your head around, is that you're looking at the interviews from the perspective of what you're going to do for a living, and that doesn't hold. So you almost have to abandon reason at some companies. And I would almost advise, if you see a company that has like 5 rounds of interviews, and I understand Google does this too, but it doesn't make any sense because I know how they hire their senior level data scientists. It's not 5 rounds of interviews. I mean, come on. I know that's the thing they said. No, they don't. They just go out and recruit them. And they don't typically, for their very top level research positions, they just look at your body of work and they say, hey, we would love to work with you. And the interviews are more a conversation about the position and the work than they are a technical assessment, because you've already built a body of work. They know you. And that's how you should assess at every level. Everyone has a body of work.
Yeah.
And you can assess that body of work to understand their capabilities and what they can do, and then understand how your business could monetize those capabilities. That's how it should work, but it doesn't work that way. And so if you can find companies who assess based on capabilities and bodies of work, you're going to be in a more successful position. You're going to be working with a more successful company, team. So my first piece of advice is don't get into the trap of interviewing with companies that can't assess your capabilities, who haven't matured to that point, because many of those teams are setups to failure. They're going to teach you a type of data science that I call legacy data science. It is descriptive modeling and it's overextended. They'll put those into production and they will almost ruin your skills, because you will begin to think that that is data science and it isn't. So be very cautious with the company that you pick and the team that you work with. And I understand you have to get a job and you have to get paid. So in many cases, that means you've got to play the game. Just know that you're playing a game, and know that what you're learning in the company may not really be that great for your career. So, that's the massive preamble behind what I'm about to say, which is, so here's how you play the game. The way you play the game is you almost abandon data science as a field when it comes to studying for a job interview. You begin to look at the company assessment methodology, and they'll have a bunch of different types of levels. The first one's memorization, where they're going to test how well you've memorized concepts.
Yeah.
And so those cheat sheets are gold, because the majority of the people asking you questions have no greater depth than wiki knowledge. And so you will be, just don't go as deep when it comes to memorization as you would when it comes to doing your job. And that's one of the things that a lot of people make a mistake with when they're preparing for interviews is they go too deep into concepts. No one's going to ask you to go more than surface level into your math stats type knowledge or any of your model architectural knowledge or your core foundational concepts behind the architectures. They're going to ask you, bullet point questions about metrics and hyperparameters, and they might ask you for a variation on a theme of a particular model architecture. It's like that's all you have to do is just memorize. So that's step one, is the memorization piece of it. And your programming knowledge is no different. You have to memorize common scenarios that have nothing to do with your job. And you're probably studying coding around actual applications that you would use on a regular basis. And the tests that they're going to give you are software engineering tests and software development tests.
Yes.
And so you have to study those common gotcha type software development methodologies, because that's what they're going to ask you for. They're not going to ask you data science implementations. They're going to ask you software development implementations. And so that's probably the area to study. What's that?
I faced that scenario, like I was selected for DS interview, but I was asked the software engineering programming questions with the time limit. That is again one more filter.
Yeah, and the worse the interview process, the less mature the team, the worse the opportunity. So, I mean, I would almost, after a first round of a nonsense process, I would almost abandon that role, because number one, you're going to have to spend a lot of time interviewing and preparing.
Yes.
Number two, your chances of success are low because this isn't your skill set.
Yes.
And the opportunity that this is going to afford you isn't that great. And so, like I said, I understand you've got to get employed, you got to get a job, you need to get paid, you got to play the game, but try to play the most sensible game you can find.
So Vin, do you mind if I interrupt here? If she's trying to find the most sensible job, for anyone who's young and really has a grasp of what they're doing, would you say then that it's better for them to search out the less institutionalized versions of opportunity, like startups and things, where the people who are running those companies understand the technologies inherently?
It's not so much understanding the technology, because you can have really smart people, really smart data scientists who can't assess candidates. And that's really the disconnect. It isn't so much that the team is an ignorant team. It's that many teams lack a training in how to assess talent and capabilities. They don't have a framework for that. And so that's what you're really looking for, is a company that's gotten really good at hiring. And there are companies out there who their hiring process just makes more sense. It's more streamlined. They don't want you to jump through hoops. They actually want you to make it in. They want to hire you. And that's what you're looking for, is a company that's looking for ways to hire you, not looking for ways to exclude you. Because companies that are successful are bringing in entry-level data scientists, and they've got a training and mentorship program. And those are the companies you're really looking for, because they're not assessing you in a way to exclude you. They are trying to figure out how they could monetize what capabilities you do have. And so they're most concerned with figuring out what you can do, not what you can't do. And so that's the type of framework you're really looking for, is when they ask questions and you get it wrong, it doesn't seem like they care. It seems like then they're going to move on to something else. And when they find an area that you're proficient in, that's when they dive in. That's when they go deep. And those are the types of interviews that you want to walk away from going, okay, that was a good opportunity. That's a good company. That's a company that I want to keep going and progress with. And so remember, your first interview, you're interviewing them as much as they are you. And when you find a good process, when you find a company that wants to hire you, go forward with them and deprioritize all the companies that just seem like they're trying to get rid of you. Like if they're trying to get you off the phone or out of the meeting as quickly as possible, if they feel like they're speeding you through, trying to find a reason not to keep going, just, politely abandon them, because it's a lot of time on your part, low return.
But what companies do you see like where I can play good game, like they understand me and I also understand what companies do you want me to try now? Can you list
Walmart
some,
and IBM
like, 5 to
are two
6
examples.
or something?
Yeah, Walmart and IBM are two great examples. Uber's another great example, although Uber's, they're going through some churn right now. They're changing quite a bit. So Uber's a challenge, but Uber's another one of those companies where their hiring practices, they vary a lot by team. And this is true with Walmart and IBM as well. They vary a lot from team to team, but they have more teams that seem to interview in a more mature way, in an inclusive instead of exclusive way. So I think you'll have more success with those three companies. Although, like I said, I mean, it varies from team to team. So you can go to a great company and interview with a team that doesn't have a great assessment framework. So, and that's the problem when you say, recommend companies. I have to recommend it with like a little asterisk on the side that says most teams are good, because few companies have company-wide consistent assessment frameworks. They may have interviewing standards and they may have standardized interviewing, but that's actually different than standardized assessment frameworks. And that's like I said, that's the real piece that's missing at a lot of companies, is the ability to assess capabilities rather than individual skills.
Also, I find one more challenge. I worked for Walmart in India as a contractor for 3 years, but while I was doing masters in data science, I applied for internships. My resume was not selected. And even after that, I applied a number of jobs for Walmart as a data analyst, taking referral too, because I have good network working with full-time Walmart people. But I haven't received an invite yet. I know I use all the keywords, and I also I had analyst background. So even if I apply for data analyst in Walmart too, I do not receive an interview. I know recruiters are busy. It's a good company. Lots of people will be applying. They don't even respond in LinkedIn. But how do you want me to find an interview? That is one more challenge which I face these days. Of course, the hiring process is good nowadays. Many recruiters are reaching me in the LinkedIn directly. But how do you want me to receive an interview from the company I love to interview?
There's a bias against consultants, and that's unfortunately true at most companies.
Yes.
Is if you are in a contractor's role, they want to keep you in a contractor's role because you are far less expensive as a contractor than you are as a full-time employee. And the only way that they're really going to convert your position is if you become so valuable to them that losing you would be detrimental. And those are the people who they actively reach out and convert. It's not just Walmart. I'm not beating Walmart up. This is just a general, Facebook is the same thing. Everybody is the same. Pretty much every large company has the same bias, because if they start promoting consultants at a high level, in a lot of people's minds, that doesn't make sense to them because they're already getting the value out of you, and they're getting it for less than they would if they convert your position. And in many cases, they have commoditized the consulting teams, where they see individual data scientists as commodities rather than investments. Whereas they're more mainline teams, they look at their data scientists as investments that will grow. And so they are worth putting the effort into, which is a really terrible backwards way of thinking about it. And so you're in one of those unfortunate positions where the starting point of a consultant, an outside consultant, puts you at a bit of a disadvantage. And I'm sorry, it's not fair. I wish we could fix this. It's one of the things I talk about a lot as being broken, is that if you provide value, you should get paid. Doesn't matter where you live, doesn't matter where you came in from, it doesn't matter what your degree is, it shouldn't matter. If you provide value, you should get paid like you do. But unfortunately, companies don't see it that way. And so recruiters almost immediately sort of bias against consultants, and it's just not fair.
Yeah.
So how do you want me to provide a value so that, of course, I'm working with Capital One right now, not with a Walmart. So how do you want me to show value? And there are some budget cuts happening every quarter. So there is a higher chance of contractor losing a job because of budget cut, not because of the performance. So in these cases, how do you suggest me to go for the full time, and what tips do you give for this scenario?
if you're trying to make the transition, shifting your resume to talk about outcomes is your best bet. And speak in terms, I mean, just like anything else, speak in terms that the business cares about. Talk about something that would get a hiring manager excited because it's something that they are accountable for.
Okay.
Talk about, in terms of value, that someone hiring you is going to go, huh, yeah, I need that.
Okay.
And if you can create that linkage between, I did this, it resulted in, and put the outcome down, that's going to create a more tangible connection between capabilities and your ability to actually drive outcomes. And that's what a lot of companies are looking for. And you can do that with communication skills as well. You can talk about how you've used communication skills for impact to drive some sort of outcome, whether that was getting buy-in or getting resources or finding requirements, finding opportunities. There are all of these sort of business related capabilities that you can put into play in your resume that help make what you do and what you can do more real.
Makes sense.
Sorry, Vin. I have something to add here, because everything is great, but there is one point I want to highlight. When we are talking about the recruiting process or applying for a job or trying to make transition from one kind of consultation to another, whatever, all of our suggestion, it's kind of population suggestion, that it's something proven over the wide range of people that it will be nice, it will make a difference. But there is another level, which is personalization suggestion, something that truly personalized to you. So at that point, I think it can be helpful, which is right now I'm talking about personalized experience that I face it. Remember that we are human, all of us, we are human. Even the recruiter or who's make the interview, he is a person at the end. And even if he use the most poker face mask in the perfect mask in the world, but at the end he is a human. You can show your value by communicating to him, building a network. What you are doing right now, it's great. So whatever we are suggesting, even what I'm suggesting right now, it's kind of population. It's over the full population of data scientists who is looking for work. This works, but it's not you. It's over the population. For you, use your personality, use your power to find that. I cannot mention, because whatever I'm going to say, it will be me. Yes. So this is a very important point here, that please be yourself. Follow the population suggestion, but also be yourself at the end.
Yeah, thank you for that, guys. And what I want to do is get to some other questions. So here's our plan, and forgive me, we're trying to get to the questions. Vikram, and then Magdi, and then Ashish, I haven't forgotten you, but we want to get to pre-soup time with Dennis. A lot of cultural reference there, Vin. And then Ngozi's Corner, but probably before Ngozi's Corner, we'll do Ashish. So Vikram, thanks for waiting so long. Go on ahead.
Hello, everyone. Thanks, Vin, for this session. I've been following you on all platforms, LinkedIn, YouTube, and also I read all your articles on Substack. So I recently read your article on Zillow's machine learning failure. So I would actually hear it from you. What is the main reason, which caused this failure, and what would you suggest to us, me, who is currently learning machine learning and is looking for a future in that part, so that we could be able to do any mistake like that?
The biggest takeaway is oversight and review as a process. You have to have oversight and review for everything that you do as a data scientist. If you don't, this is going to happen to you, because I've been one review away from that disaster. And I think all of us have. where one of our assumptions was baked into something that we were building. And if it weren't for the review process, it had never been caught. It would have gone to production, and it could have been the same level of mistake. So I think that's the biggest takeaway, is you have to have multiple levels of review and oversight. And in the case of Zillow, the biggest missing piece is that they didn't have it at the C-suite level. They didn't have it at the strategy level. And those are two places where, if you're going to build a business model around data science, if you're going to actually get people to pay for inference in one way, shape, or form, you need to have somebody at the C-suite level who can say, we're not asking enough questions, and the level of confidence that I'm getting isn't high enough. At the strategy level, you have to have someone who can make the decision as a data scientist that this is a bridge too far, and we will be able to deliver a solution, but we will not be able to deliver a solution which is reliable enough to support this particular business model. And what was interesting about Zillow is they had all the pieces that an extraordinarily competent data science organization. They had an extraordinarily competent leadership team. The leadership team understood exactly the ranges of performance that their model needed to provide, had a whole lot of insight from the investing community on where the problems could be coming from. And still this happened. And so it was a lot of putting your hands over your ears and not listening to that review process, not listening to feedback and taking it to heart and saying, okay, everyone is saying there's something wrong here. We should probably be doing more validation. And that, again, if you don't have somebody who's a data scientist at the leadership level, and if you don't have somebody who's a data scientist at the strategy position, strategy team, you're in a lot of trouble, because you won't have the right framework to ask those questions. And your data science team, no matter how competent, may be missing some oversight. They may be missing some layers of review. They may even be missing some process and framework pieces that can lead to this sort of a failure. And that can happen on an amazingly competent team.
Very good. And yes, thanks, Vikram. And Magdi, I beg your forgiveness. Amir did have a quick question before yours. I apologize. Go ahead, Amir. Amir?
Hi, yeah, hi. That's absolutely not a problem. I was just saying that, yeah. So I had a question, Vin, for you. What are your thoughts on collaborative project scoping, like with domain experts or business teams, for so that we ask the right questions, the right whys that drive businesses. And yeah, many people have been talking about it for better return on data. So what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think that's the only way you can move forward. I mean, if you silo off the data science team, you don't have a chance. And so I talk about the strategic level and the top level and talking to the C-suite and senior leaders, but you've kind of hit on a point that there's also sort of this next level down communication and collaboration that needs to happen at that middle to bottom layer, where you have to be working with other teams. You have to be working with subject matter experts and domain experts. You have to be working with customers, not just external, but internal. You have to be working with other stakeholders. I mean, these are the really granular tasks that need to happen to support all of that I've been talking about that happens at the top. There is all of this other work. And you bring up a really good point. Collaborative scoping is excellent, because at the ground floor, you're going to come up with all of the things that us wonderful idealists miss. As it's the architecture engineer problem, where your architect creates these plans that are absolutely beautiful, and your engineer goes, "Come on, man," or "Come on, girl, what are you doing? Why are you doing this to me?" And that's the disconnect sometimes between architecture and engineering. And I think you have to have both, and you have to have both contributing to each other. And so you've put in one really good layer is, if you don't have collaboration across teams, then you can't really communicate all of the different problems with my pie in the sky idea to me. And this is another one of those oversight pieces, is if you don't have the engineers at the ground floor saying, yes, okay, it's crazy, but I can pull that off. If you don't have that coming from multiple teams, it's a huge risk. So absolutely.
And Maggie, thanks for being so patient. Amira, thanks for that question. Okay, Maggie, Mom.
Yeah, no issue. First of all, thank you very much, Vin, for all the advices and the insights. I'm still digesting because of the volume. And there are a lot of things I fully agree with you. And that comes also from because we are in the same generation. And because of this, I was just thinking, and I would like to challenge one of your advice a bit. Because to be honest, I was in the same position saying the same things to young guys looking for a job. I was faced with something which really hit me, and you mentioned that you don't know the other countries how things works, but I think it is more or less the general and common thing. And what I faced, it was relating to India, basically the recruiting process and so on. And then I realized it is nice to give such advices to the young ones who are looking for example, the first company to work for after graduation. And it is, I was also saying that, choose the company. But then it is a big dilemma. I realized that it's a big dilemma for them. Because, you are working for a long time in the business. I'm working in a long time of business. So we made our experience through these companies. And this is my conclusion, that you really have to go through your own experience and start one company and the second and the third. And then you can say, and then you can change the mindset, because I think it's all about the mindset, that you are not going to the interview that, I want to get a job because I have my needs. And then we are getting back to the Maslow hierarchy of needs, because I can from Europe say that, I don't care, I can wait 3 months. But in India, they cannot do that. They need a job, for example, in a lot of cases. And after these experiences, after more companies or own business or startups or whatever, they can say that, okay, I'm not so eager to get the job. It is more important for me who I work for, or who, better to say, who I work with, for example, because it's a big difference after a while. But I'm not just 100% sure that when you graduate and you are eager to work like you were in the 90s, that you just wanted to roll out and practice your knowledge, then you just go with the flow and you just check, okay, 90% of the companies, for example, they are making this type of interviews. That first round, second round was what Priya described. And they do not care about the capabilities. You're fully correct. But as a new one or a newbie to this business or the field, how can you filter out the companies? And how can you change this mindset that, okay, I know that I need a job because I want to be paid, I have family, or I have my own needs. But I just feel that this is kind of a trap a little bit at the beginning. After a while, you learn it, but at the beginning, that it comes also from the business, that it's a trap of skills versus capabilities. And I fully agree that in a normal, optimal situation, companies should go and see the chances in guys, because skills you can learn, you can train. They do the training on the job, but capabilities, I think it is more valuable. But there are companies who do not see this. And on the other side, there are also the first round who is interviewing you, an HR person. He has no clue, or she has no clue about it. He got the checklist, and has to make the take. Do you have the skills? Yes, because that is the easiest. They get the commission after recruiting someone or providing someone for the company. So they will not pay attention about the capabilities. This is my experience, at least through these young people, and they just face these problems, and after a while it is a dilemma. Okay, what kind of companies should I apply for? How to approach, and coming with the eagerness that Google, Facebook, everybody wanna work there. And when I'm saying that, no, don't do that. Start with a small company where you can really learn, and where they can build you up for your career. And it is. I just feel that it is really difficult as a start in a starting position, what to consider. And as I said, I fully agree whatever you said. And that, but for me, kind of a optimal situation. And I think, to give an advice, maybe it is nice to say that how to change the suboptimal situation towards the optimal situation. And this is what maybe they should learn, that, okay, this is now the situation. How can I make it better for me?
Now, real quick before your answer, Vin, everyone just check if you're not speaking that you're on mute. And we're going to hear Vin's answer to Magdi. Guy's got a follow-up related question. And Dennis, I hope you're ready for pre-soup time discussion. He's live from the Louvre, Vin. Okay, go on ahead, Vin, and then Guy's follow-up.
Yeah, just really quickly, I look at your time when you're applying for a job as a zero-sum game, because it is. You have finite resources. You have so many hours to prep. You have so many hours to apply to an interview. And so you can only take on a certain number of opportunities. And the mistake I think most of us make that bring us into the trap and the reality that you're talking about is we apply for as many opportunities as we can, hoping to get as many opportunities to interview as possible. And that stretches our time thin. And if we instead apply, like I said, that zero-sum approach and look for the opportunities we are most likely to get, and those are typically your best companies. The worst companies are going to waste your time, and they are going to, you're going to spend so much time preparing for 8 interviews that you're not going to do well on any given one. Whereas if you apply to 5 jobs at quality companies, if you spend a week finding quality companies, just going through job opportunities and looking for all the red flags and just tossing all of the ones that have those red flags, and then focusing on the ones that have the fewest, because you're right, there's no perfect. There just really isn't. And if you find the best possible opportunities, the best possible teams, and you focus in on the ones which connect with you and create the best possibility of success, you can then spend the most time preparing for each interview and really nail it as best as you can. But at the end of the day, you are 100% right. It's a game. And especially when you don't have the upper hand, you have to play the game. And as mind-numbing and as painful as that is, you, to some extent, have to play the game. And you're right, I'm in a privileged position. If you live in America, the sheer volume of open positions and the lack of available talent makes us in a different place than most other countries are. So the advice I give is very America-centric, and it does not extend in every country, because many countries have a different reality. And so you're completely right. And everything you said was dead on. There is a point at which my idealism for perfection has to sort of fall to the reality of, you got to put something at the end of that fork or you're really hungry.
And I just want to remind everyone, if you don't get an opportunity interviewed for, you need to remember, interviews are just practice for the next interview. And there's 2 problems with interviewing. It's an evaluation process. And there's 2 problems. the evaluators and the evaluatees. Okay, got it.
I cannot say anything after you and after Vin. I apologize. Nothing to comment on.
No problem. No problem.
No,
All right.
there is only one point. Only one point.
Okay.
It's
One
a
point.
trap. It's a trap, but it's better to consider it as a trip, because at the end, will finish, and you will find the dream job that you find, or the best job that you are able to find. And at that point, you will consider each interview, each fire out, each thing as part of your personality, part of your experience. What to do in less development country or in countries with a lot of talent, just like India, for example, build your own ideas, make it as full job for you. Beside your work, you're looking for a job. This is the only thing. Maybe you can discuss a lot, but I don't want to spend the time about it, because what Venice said, what Magdi point of view, it's great. That's why I want to comment beside what Tom said.
And Jim, I don't know if you've ever experienced our brother Dennis, but I have to warn you, you've never spoken to a more multi-philosophical, multi-religious, multicultural, multilingual person in your life. I know this, but he is fun to talk to, and you don't have to always agree with him. He'd probably love you more if you disagree with him. But Dennis, you got any thoughts for us today?
Yes. Can you hear me? Okay. Well, I've always been on the other side of what you're talking about. I've always hired people. I've never been employed by someone. So I'm the person you've been talking about for all the time I've been listening to you. Now, of course, since you know me, I don't agree about much of what I heard. Would be a surprise if I did. So let's take one case. One situation. What I look at, and I hired a lot of people because when I worked even for corporations, I could choose the engineers we would work with. I was in what we call a privileged position, since I earned them a lot of money. So they say, who do you want to work with? And I could choose the people in the company. So the first thing I look at, I think it's good to have, I'll just go in a certain order. It's good to have a solid resume. I think it's good to study. It's good to have a degree, and it's good to have a college degree because it shows that you can learn. No matter what that college degree is, but you have to show that you were able to learn something and you were able to write in a more complex way after your high school. So I would say the resume is important. Then comes the way you present your experience. Like, I'm always careful about experience because I don't care about past experience if we're working on something new. I don't care if someone worked on something 10 years ago that's obsolete. So then comes, maybe did you do something interesting? Are you creative? Okay, so these are basic resume standard human resource analysis of a resume. But then the really first thing I look at is this person nice or not nice? That is the very first thing. The person can have the resume he wants or she wants. Is that person nice? Because we have to work on a team and no one knows everything. So we're gonna have to work on a team. So we have to talk to each other all the time, because I always worked in open spaces where I was in the middle of space developing with others. I was a project manager. Is this a nice person? Okay, so you're saying, then you go to the next step and you say, I don't care. I live in France, which is like the United States. You can get a job, but do I want that job? Because maybe it's not good for my family. Maybe it's not good for me. Maybe I'll get a burnout. Or maybe I need the money. I'll take the job. So basically, let me imagine on your side trying to get a job. The first thing I would do is bring added value into the conversation. Otherwise, I'm going to look like all the other people. If I'm just sitting there, look at my nice college degree, look at how nice I am, and I won't even listen anymore. But if the person comes along and said, I went on your website and I had to look at what you're doing, and let me show you something. And the person, this has happened to me several times, takes the laptop out and says, let me show you something that I do that could really help your company. So the key thing, I think, is the added value. What's your added value? If you have no added value, who cares? There are 10 people like you. Sometimes I got 30 or 40 resumes. But the ones I hired is the person that would come in and said, and after 2 minutes, let me show you something that can help your company. So I would say added value is important. And if you can show that you're motivated to help that company get that added value, people will listen to you. You say, you're losing, I can show you a way to improve this. I can show you a way to improve that. And when I'm finished saying all that, it doesn't mean much, because every single person has a different history, and every single person is going to meet a different person. And in the end, I think it's 50% luck. So I've noticed that it's, like person said, gee, if I'd sent the resume last week, would you have hired me? Yeah, sure, but you came too late. There's, I think, 50% luck. We're trying to find all kinds of rules, but there's a lot of luck in there and random stuff. So to sum up, what I'm saying is, have a solid resume. Don't underestimate education, and don't underestimate the way you present your resumes, because we read them first. And if they look lousy, I just skip to another one. But I usually stop at resumes that are well written, where people will include how they do things, project management, and I'll do this and I'll do that, and then added value, and then hope for the best, pray that something will happen, because everything we've been saying here is just, it's not your life. It's like Guyeth said, each life is different. So a good degree, a good resume, go in there hard with added value, motivation. If they don't hire you, I won't say bad words on the internet, but I'd say F you, and then I just go on to the next employee and says, this guy's so stupid, he doesn't understand who I am and what I could have done for him. Because there is a lot of discrimination out there. No one wants to say the word, but it's full of discrimination on everything, on color, on religion, on national citizenship, on sex, gender, everything. It's full of bias. Hiring people is full of bias, and all these human resource people are full of bias, but you can't say it, but you can see it. So if you'll fight your way through, of course, if you're living in India or you're living in Africa and you're trying to get a job, well, just take anything that'll get you food. I mean, if I were there in a country and I had to get a job, I'd be a cleaner. I'd even go get a job to be a cleaner, and I'd come with my vacuum cleaner and say, you know what, you don't even have to give me one, I have one. So I would say, if you're hungry, take any job you can, even cleaning, washing dishes. At least you're doing something, and then you can go up. So if it's difficult to get a job, take any job. When I was a student, I took any job. You can look at my profile. I did about 20 jobs when I was a student, and it helped me a lot to learn who people are. And then, so take the lousiest job you can, as long as you get money, if you're hungry, and then try to get a better job, a better job, a better job. And life will, I like this sentence, life has more imagination than we do. And something
Now, Brother
good is
Dennis,
always going to happen.
real quick, I bet Vin's going to horribly disappoint you by agreeing with everything you've been saying. Is that accurate, Vin?
Hold on, I'll think of something to say. I gotta
Okay.
need a minute. I'll think of something controversial to say back. Hold on.
Okay.
And that time, until when he find it, I will tell Dennis that I was lucky that my other job that I'm doing during the college, it was making chocolate. So
yeah, that's good
for you.
Yeah, yes. I like, when I was a student, I saw all these students around me. They didn't want to do jobs because they were college students, in the 1970s, coming from rich families. I did night guard, I did cleaning, I did cleaning several times, night guard several times. I played the piano in bars. I played the piano in the Club Med. I don't know, about 20 jobs. I even worked in warehouses. And that helped me a lot because I learned how to understand people, talk to them. And I found that as long as I had a salary, I could pay for my rent and eat. What did I care? I mean, I just, sit down and read a book.
Yes,
after.
Dennis, here is the trick that I was working on for that and making chocolate for a long time. So it's only I get paid, I get the chocolate, which is I like. Also, there is a lot of nuts there. Perfect
Good.
work.
Perfect work. I agree. Just give me money, something to eat so I can pay for a rent, eat, read a book, maybe feed my family. I don't care. I could do any job. And I think that if you have that mindset, it makes you pretty strong because you can go through anything after that. Once you've been
Exactly.
sweeping
And
a building, if you sweep a building for 2 months, you're ready to do any kind of job. Anything's better.
exactly. And you know that what kind of job you don't want to have. And it motivates you to grow and do something
No.
higher
I
and learn.
can go back and clean. If I needed money, I can go back cleaning because you don't forget. I had a great time because I was always making jokes with people and we would talk in the evening. It can be a great job. It depends who you're working with. In fact, you can be happier cleaning with a good team that everyone's laughing and fun than working as a data scientist in some corporation where you get these goals. Have you attained your goals? Or you're not going to get your bonus. That's one of the reasons I was self-employed. I can't stand employers.
I have to confess to everyone here, there are oftentimes I dream of going and making it alone in the woods or just taking a very simple job. Vin,
That's
you
right.
got any counter thoughts? I'm guessing you agree with all this.
I do because we're all kind of in the same generational range. And so I'm going to pretend to be somebody who's a Gen Zer for a few seconds. And
Cool.
I want to give a different perspective because this is something that I hear repeatedly and I struggle with it because my experience is different. My perspective is different. I did the same thing. I sold shoes. I mean, and I did it because I made commission and it was great. And I made good money. It got me through college and it helped me with my first business supplement when I wasn't making enough money with clients and, doing basic software installations and web design and database stuff and running network cable and all of those other little things that helped me get my first job. My experience is you could work your way up, that there were opportunities and that even the low paying jobs paid enough that I could afford decent things and a good living. It's not true anymore. That's where things, have started to go off the rails. There are still good paying jobs that you can get in college, but there aren't as many of them. And there are many, many jobs where the minimum wage just hasn't kept up. And there are no opportunities in those jobs. And there are entire areas, like Reno used to be one of these, where there were no high paying jobs sort of at that bottom layer that you could work your way up in and that you could find opportunity in. But so there's this dichotomy in our economy right now where you still have that, where you still have the ability to, in some roles, work your way up, sort of bootstrap yourself. But there's an increasing amount of our economy that doesn't offer that, where you're stuck at a range of pay where you're really one disaster away from losing your college education, losing the ability to go, and not having the same opportunities to advance. And so while I want everyone to have our work ethic, I want everyone to be willing to exactly what you're saying. I mean, if I gotta mop floors, I'll mop floors. If I gotta sell shoes, I'll sell shoes. I want that work ethic to come out of our generation and hit every other generation, because that's what it takes to build a great society and a great country. You got to be willing to sweep some floors sometimes, because that's what it takes on any given year to get the country to where it needs to be and to get your business where it needs to be. But at the same time, I want opportunities to be ubiquitous, and they aren't always. Which, you know, in our mindset is that's not fair. You got to find a way, but we've got to make it so that there is one, so it's possible. So there's my Gen Z. That's as good as I got for a counterpoint. It's not really a counterpoint.
To go back to mopping, you know, I was working in Paris. I remember 2 jobs. I was working in Paris and I was cleaning a building. And I was cleaning so well because I was really working hard that after a few days, the manager says, I want you to show other teams. And after 2 months, he said, you know, you could have been a manager in our business. So I think you can always go up from anywhere. And I remember a job in San Francisco where I landed, from people that know San Francisco, I landed in the Tenderloin quarter. You know, people that know San Francisco know how bad it is. And I took a job as a night guard in a very dangerous bank, and I earned money. Then I could rent an apartment, and then I found a better night guard job, and they kept calling me in. I think you can go up from anywhere if you work hard. If you're working as a dishwasher in a restaurant, if you work pretty hard, well, then maybe they'll say, hey, why don't you go now and serve some coffee in the room, and then you can be. I'll just finish on this one. I remember a pastor, maybe I told you this story before, a pastor, when Michael Jackson passed away, and he was a small guy, about as small as me, and he was talking, and I just loved what he was saying, because, and I told my children this for years. I mean, I'd still tell people that. He said, if you are a street cleaner, be the Mozart of street cleaners. And I just love that sentence, because if you do that, you'll feel good, and necessarily you'll go up. Somehow you'll go up somewhere. So that's how I see life. And I always say, imagine life has more imagination than we do. So if you're there, something will happen. That's about all I have to say before I go eat soup.
Soup. Thank you, Brother Dennis. Ashish, you have been incredibly patient. Please ask your question. I'm eager to hear it myself here.
Actually,
I'll listen to the question, then I'll go.
Many of my questions were answered by Dennis' talk and Vin's basically suggestion on MACD. But I would like to basically learn from Vin that as you have come from varied experience with software DevOps and many things in your further journey. Similarly, I do have a software engineering experience as of 2 years as of now, but I like machine learning as well, equivalently well with software engineering, and I think I plan to do something in an intermixture of both. Is there any way that I can look forward to? And that was my first question, where I can intermix both aspects of software development, developing solutions through machine learning and software development, and how I can plan my trajectory in the future. I know in the long term, I think I have something in mind, but in the short term, in order to reach that goal of developing something, or maybe creating a startup environment where I can intermix both, that's what I'm looking for in the long term. But to achieve that, what short-term steps that I can look forward to? That's my first question. Secondly, it's not a question, it's just something that on some points that MACD shared before. So in India, it's kind of true that basically interviewing experience is slightly difficult to get an interview. But I think with good curation of the resumes, building up portfolios, profiles, adding up some projects of self-initiated projects, it is possible to get that particular interview. In addition, in the interview process bias, I think it is a lot of luck based, even in India, and I think in other countries as well. My personal experience was I got an interview as an SD1 role in a good company, and I kind of got rejected at the last round. 2 weeks after that, I got an opportunity from the recruiter of different recruiter for an SD2 role at the same organization. And fortunately, I got selected in that role. And it was so surprising because there was not much difference in the interview process, and I did not do anything different in both the interviews. I think second interview I've prepared less, but that's something luck-based, what happens in India, not in India specifically, but everywhere. So yeah, I would like to hear your thoughts on the first question I had.
So it sounds like you want to be a machine learning engineer. Does that sound about right? You have a lot of what's required when it comes to your software development, software engineering background. If you understand rigorous, Dennis,
Bye.
if you understand the actual rigorous software engineering, capital E, not the software development or coding side of it, you're a leg up, because most companies are building their infrastructure right now. And so they need that engineering. They need you to actually be able to do the engineering work, which is a lot harder, and the mindset's different. There's a whole lot of work that you need to do that's easy to shortcut. And so you have, I want to emphasize, you have one of the biggest pieces of machine learning engineering's capability basket in your software development, software engineering background. On the data science side, you as a machine learning engineer have a range of different expectations depending upon the company that you're going to go to for how much of the data science piece that you're going to do. But the majority of companies are going to have you doing descriptive modeling at the very earliest stages. It's advanced analytics. And so they may be saying the words deep learning and natural language and CV and all of those other things, but are they really doing it? It's not a day-to-day thing. So yeah, you'll see it. We talked about the game that you have to play. Yeah, you'll see it in the interview. They'll put it in the requirements, but your NLP knowledge is really import from, and it's going to be a whole lot of canned models for the first couple of years or few years. So, again, abandon reason a little bit when it comes to your interviewing strategies and go for what the resume tells you to do. But again, also listen for the cues for a good company, because the more mature the team around you is, the more you're going to grow and the faster you're going to grow. Listen for mentorship and development as part of what they're talking to you about, because you'll find the interview process is different at companies that have a training and mentorship program. They don't expect you to be fully baked. They even sometimes don't want you to be, because I'll be honest, a lot of senior data scientists don't do the type of data science that we do now in order to support reliable model development and putting things into production that don't die after about 2 weeks, which is going to be most of your life, and prevent it from absolutely failing in the most catastrophic and public way possible. So if you have that sort of a focus on production, on reliability, and actually building things that are tangible, not pie in the sky, you're going to have the type of resume that will be successful in getting people's attention. You got to play the game, but find the ones that are least gamey. Find the companies that are going to give you a training and mentorship path and that are going to put a good team around you, because that's going to accelerate your career so much more than working with a mediocre team. But finally, if you are having trouble getting onto a data science team, apply for a role in a software development team that supports a data science team, because you have all of the qualifications, and then you can basically, promote yourself into that role. Just keep showcasing your capability and volunteer for stuff. Where there's model development work that they seem like they're struggling to take on as far as task work goes, just volunteer for it. When they realize you can do it, the next time they need to hire somebody, why would you want to go through 200 resumes and 8 rounds of interviews if all I got to do is call you up? You can almost create the farm club for them and teach everybody else in the organization how to network their way into a job by just do it. Just do it. Don't ask for permission sometimes. If you're in an analytics team, no one's going to stop you from doing data science. No one's going to prevent you from doing that. No one's going to hate you for implementing something that's more successful than what was there before. So, do the work. And sometimes that's the best way to network your way into a position. If you can't get in the data science team, go in through the side door. Go from kitchen to bar, or whatever, the career path that you want is, by taking a role that's adjacent. And look for a company that's open to that. Don't stick yourself into a company that doesn't know what career progression is and wouldn't let you do it anyway. So, you have to be careful when you talk about networking your way into a role, that you're at a company that's supportive of that.
That's actually really, really great advice. I think there will be a re-recording. I will have to go through the recording to completely grasp this session.
I really loved your answers there, Vin. Completely agreed. And, there is a theme here. Dennis was talking about hopping from company to company job-wise. But I agree with Vin, too. In our country, in the States, it's hard to get those ground level jobs now and work up from there. It's just kind of a new mentality, but it doesn't mean you can't job hop. And it's hard. It's possible in some regions to go of our country to take a basic job and survive. I see people doing it even in my growingly expensive area of Boise, but it's and I'm assuming then Reno's having similar problems with skyrocketing real estate prices thanks to Californian refugees bringing all their money in. Ashish, great question, thank you. And then Ngozi, we have Ngozi Corner anyway, so you didn't even need to raise your hand, but let's let Vin hear from your wisdom this morning.
Wow, you flatter me. Thank you so much, Vin, for visiting the family. It's been great listening to you. And I think what I was going to say, you actually encapsulated in your last discussion, because advising people on, there's a number of things I think I put in the chat. First of all, I do not think data scientists are, I don't know the word you used. There's no competition between us. The way I look at it, between data scientists or data science and software engineering or software development or any of that, as what I see is a progression on a continuum. And in the chat, I was making a point of saying, when I started in IT, IT was actually under finance in most companies, accounting department. Yeah, IT was subsumed under them. And we could have played your talk 30 years ago and it would have been very relevant in those days, because nobody gave the light of day to whatever it is that analysts were trying to do and say. And it's the same thing today. So I don't think it's a pitch yourself against this group. It's all people working with data, coming at it. There's something additional value being added with the data scientists and the angle of doing things. And what you said now sort of made the point. If you can't get a data scientist role, find a job that you have to work with data, add value by doing what you do, data science in that role, if that's anything to go by. And one thing I do advise young people is, whatever job you're doing in data, find something you can produce, an output that has nothing to do with your job description, but that is your signature output for the company, a value that only you are adding, something you've created solely by yourself for that company. That is something you can always signpost and say, I did X for Y company, when you're looking for new jobs. And if you're new and you don't have the luxury of being picky with your first job, because some people do not have that luxury, it's a question of finding a job, because you do need a job, full stop. Find a job as much as you can, do data science in that job, and then progress with it. Whatever you can do that adds a bit more value to whatever it is you've been asked to do. It will take your personal time, but invest in that time, because it's an investment in your future. Then, what you said last makes a point for you, because when you've added that kind of value and when you've given them products that they can see, showcases what you can add, they can create the opportunity for you. You get a chair at the table that you didn't even know existed. So, and that was just what I wanted to add, because some of us that have the options of being picky, studying the company, and young people are also very impatient. I was also impatient. But one good advice someone gave me when I was starting out in my career, and that is what I would tell every young person, it's not a life sentence. There's nothing like, I tell people there's nothing like a permanent job. What does that even mean? You do a job in a company for a period, and then you need to move on because you didn't found that company. Even founders go and find something else when it's not working. So if you started off with a company and you outgrow the position or you outgrow their vision because they're not letting you do what you need to do, then you have the opportunity to move on. Do not sentence yourself to outgrow in this company because that might not be your future. And I'll stop there. Thank you very much for the opportunity.
Yeah, Vin, any comments on what she shared? It seemed like you agreed with it all.
Yeah, no, that was great. Thank you.
Yeah, she always has something good to add, frankly. Okay, Guy.
Yes. Just first of all, I have to say something to Vin. The session, as always, we are following what the family is asking for, so it goes more into how to look for a job, and it was great, really. But personally, I have a lot of things to learn from you. Maybe today it was the most for me, and Tom knows that. I clap a lot, which is because I double click all what you said, and I'm learning also. Really, thank you. I'm happy for that. But my point, it's about whatever we spoke about for looking for a job. It just look like for me right now. Maybe this is how I read it right now. Looking for a job, it's kind of food and water. That means always you are looking for a job. If you have a job, you are looking for a better job. If you don't have a job, you need to find a job. So at that point, if we are starting, so we have to accept anything to eat because we don't need to die. But when we are in good place, we can be very picky and find the best sushi we need. So maybe this is something that I can add it. Yes, we have to deal with it as like this. At the end, we are not living this life to eat, but we need eat. And the same, we are not here to work, but we have to work. This is the best thing that we can see from all of this discussion. This is what I want to add. Thank you.
Thank you, Guy. So Vin, I know we're going to want to have you back. And for that reason, we don't want to abuse you. We've gone 2 hours of serious chat, not counting our original chit chat time. And I know it never seems like we could go long enough, but Vin, we all say welcome to the family. I want to add you to our Slack work group so that when you do a LinkedIn post, we have a LinkedIn post support channel in our Slack group. We're small. We're only a little over 1,000, but that way people that are checking in on that want to support each other's posts, they can support your post. It's not like you need that. You always get tons of reactions, and rightly so. But I'll make sure we get you added to the family, and you might get quite a bit of direct messages once you join the family. But do what you can handle. And everyone, let's clap for Vin to thank him for coming. And we really do hope you can come back more. And it's amazing. Greg's been sitting here quietly the whole time, soaking in your wisdom. And there he is. And I asked him, he didn't want to ask any questions because he loved the questions being asked, but we just have some amazing people in our family, and we're honored to have them here. And I think everyone was super blessed with what you had to share with us today. So you guys send either me or other Steward team members suggestions about who else we can invite. And without further ado, let's say goodbye so we don't abuse anyone. And y'all have a great rest of your weekend. All right. Take care, everyone.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye, everyone. Thanks for your time.
Bye,
Yep.
everyone.
Bye. Thanks for coming.
Bye, thank you.